Hi, I'm Dr. Rolan Tripp. In my role as the behaviorist for Hannah the Pet Society, what we want to do is have you, the member, or you, the guest, have the very best experience you can with your dog. Now, one of the things we want you to do a lot is walk the dog. Now, there's something just fantastic about this, because not only is there physical exercise, but whenever you're walking the dog, it's good for you and your physical health, which is also a concern. But the part of it that is missing for many people that they don't really get is the mental and emotional experience and exercise that dogs get from going on a walk. The sniffing, the seeing, the hearing, all these things are a form of emotional and psychological stimulation that helps them develop their personality. So even if you have a big yard, it doesn't count. What we'd like to see is this formula. A minimum exercise of a quarter mile per 10 pounds of dog per day as a minimum. So if you only have a 10-pound dog, then a quarter of a mile is probably sufficient. If you have a 40-pound dog, then 4 times that would be at least a mile a day of on-leash walking off your property, getting that emotional exercise. So let's talk about working with a leash and a dog. There's basically 2 problems that develop. One is when the dog is lagging behind and won't come, and the other is when it's forging out in front and is pulling this way. So let's start with the first one. Some dogs have never seen a leash before, or they get stuck sniffing something and just don't want to come with you, so you need to get them to come. So I'm going to teach you 4 things right now. 2 of them are bad, 2 of them are good. So first let's talk about the wrong or bad things to do, in my view, in my opinion, with a leash and a dog. First would be jerk. So that's a quick jerk like this, jerk. See, there's a they call it a jerk for a reason. It's not a good thing. So I'm saying don't do a jerk. And the second thing that's a bad thing would be a drag, where you just drag the pet like this and they're going like that. So both of those are uncomfortable for everyone. So let's talk about the 2 good things. This is when the dog is not wanting to come and is lagging behind. The first thing is a nudge. The nudge means we're going to move forward like this and then release. So we want to get them going a step or 2 and then get them on their own, and then they continue to come. As you get down and clap your hands and slap your thighs and get really attractive to the dog and get him to come to you. Now remember, the purpose of the leash is so the dog doesn't go that direction. The purpose of the leash is not to drag them along after you. So if you get them this nudge, or just get them started the first few steps, then we want to be attractive and get them to come along and try it. Now, if that doesn't work, move to the last of the 4. This is also a good thing, and that is called pulsing the leash. It's really a series of nudges where you kind of nudge and come on a little bit, come on. So you pull them forward and release the pressure and try to get them just that first couple steps so that they're coming to you. Now, let's talk about the other extreme. Now they're coming and they're pulling out in front. Now, this is called forging, as in forging ahead. Now, we have a fundamental problem. That is, the average human walks at about 4 miles an hour if you're just walking out straight. The average dog walks about 8 miles an hour. So just the average person, average dog, now we put a string connecting them, we've got an automatic problem pretty much every time. So we've got to address this. There's basically 2 ways now to address the dog who is pulling you ahead. The first and simplest way is to use a device, something that you buy and put on the dog. Of those, the simplest thing is a front latch harness, where it comes around and attaches in front. There's a couple of different designs on this, but basically it makes it difficult for the dog to pull because it pulls the shoulders in and they kind of go like this and they really can't have the pressure to pull ahead, so that causes them to walk slower. The second alternative is different, called a head collar. This is where you have a collar that goes around the head, right up behind the ears, and across the front like this. My preferred brand is the General Leader, but there are many other brands as well. The idea now is you control the head and it snaps up here so they're not choking and they can't pull, because when they try to pull they just turn their head to the side. So those are devices that you can use to go forward. Now there is something called a prong collar, and generally we don't recommend that, or it's a very last resort, because now we've reverted to using pain to control the forward movement, which is not desired. Now, if a device is not your option, the better, if you have the time, energy, and patience, is to train or teach the dog not to pull on a leash. So that's our first choice. So what we want to do now is understand that when the dog is pulling, we have to convince the dog that it's actually better for you to walk at my rate than it is at your rate. How do we do that? Here's how. When the dog is pulling, now let me define pulling on the leash. Pulling on the leash means that the pressure that the leash is pulling is enough to pass this test. If you make the OK sign like this, If the leash were put in through here and the dog is pulling hard enough to pull it out from here, that's the amount of pressure that I'm saying is too much. So that gives you a measurement. Now, when the dog is pulling too much, about that much, what you would say is easy first, that's a warning to say you need to slow down, and then stop and sit. Have the dog sit. If it won't sit, you got to work on the sit command. But we want the dog to sit and just relax a little bit because he was going too fast. Then we say, okay, and we go forward. We say easy, that means walk easily on the leash, and then we praise, 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 praise. As long as the leash has some slack in it, when it hits the end, we stop, sit again, and wait, and then praise, praise, praise. So the idea is we're praising slack leash, and if the dog pulls too much, it has to sit. In this way, the dog learns, if you really want to go forward, the best way to do it is to walk at a slower rate, slower than you would naturally move, but this is the only way that you're going to move forward. Now, if you can start that from day one and continue that, and the dog learns that, now you have a dog that won't pull the leash, and you don't have to revert to devices, and you have a method now to get them to come up with you when they found something that they want to sniff. So that's my suggestions on leash control. If you have more questions, visit hannasociety.com. See you then.